So today's video is going to be a little bit different, and that is a discussion surrounding a rumour. Now, I don't usually cover rumours. I don't really cover the movies or the shows, to be honest. The only time I really cover news or rumours is when it pertains to Knights of the Old Republic, but this one piqued my interest, and not necessarily for a good reason, but we'll get to that. So this rumour that is going around is that Keanu Reeves has officially been cast in a Star Wars project. However, he hasn't been cast in any kind of major role. Instead, he's been cast in a cameo role for The Acolyte. Now, The Acolyte is a TV show coming out next year that's going to focus on the Sith. It's set 100 years before the movies in the High Republic era of Star Wars, and it's going to feature lots of Jedi and primarily going to tell the story of how the Sith survived through the rule of two, which ultimately led to Palpatine. I did see the leaked teaser trailer for it at Star Wars Celebration, and it looks okay. It had a kind of kung fu feel. And while I'm not necessarily fond of the writer and the director for the show, Leslie Headland, I think the overall premise and the concept of The Acolyte is probably the most interesting thing to come out of Star Wars in a long time. And I've been very open about how it is probably my most anticipated Star Wars live-action project, simply on the basis that it is the most unique. But with that said, we don't really know too much about it. I imagine we'll start learning more towards the back end of this year, maybe early next year, after Ahsoka and the Skeleton Crew, which literally nobody remembers, have had their time to shine. Now, there's a lot of people that are claiming this rumour as their own, claiming their sources are talking to them about it, but based on what I could find, the root of this rumour came from a Forbes article that spoke about the pre-production costs of The Acolyte. Now, Forbes are quite a prestigious news outlet, and although this doesn't necessarily make it true in any way, shape or form, when discussing the pre-production costs, the article goes on to say, and I quote, "Perhaps the biggest name amongst its ranks only came to light a few days ago when it was revealed that Keanu Reeves will have a cameo in the show. He joined Matrix co-star Carrie-Anne Moss, who is reportedly playing a Jedi when the Warriors were at the peak of their power." Based on the writing, I can't tell whether this article is trying to claim that they personally learned that Keanu was in the show from their own sources, or whether they're just regurgitating information from somewhere else, but I think the last time any rumour went around suggesting that Keanu Reeves was going to be in Star Wars was from Mike Zero, and we all know not to listen to anything that dude says. If I remember rightly, he claimed that Keanu was going to play some kind of Sith King. But even then, why would you cast someone who has such a name within the industry like Keanu Reeves for a cameo role of all things? Keanu Reeves, as an actor, more often than not, is a leading man. And he's just a well-loved and popular figure within the industry. And yes, there are a lot of prestigious names that have done cameos in Star Wars in the past. We just have to look at The Mandalorian, for example, even though I've tried my best to forget that Lizzo was in it. I honestly don't think Disney would be silly enough to cast someone like Keanu Reeves as somebody without any relevance whatsoever. Now, it's time to put on the tinfoil hat, because Keanu is the kind of man you want at the forefront of a Star Wars project. And with that said, we all know who Keanu Reeves is fan cast as all the time, and that is Revan. Prior to The Mandalorian Season 2, there were two fan casts that were more prevalent than any other, and that was Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka and Keanu Reeves as Revan. And after seeing them cast Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, even though I don't really think she's the best for the role anyway, I think it's an indication that maybe Lucasfilm are actually looking at some of these fan casts, so what's stopping them from doing it again? Like I said, Keanu is the second big fan cast that everybody wanted to see, apart from me apparently, and we also have a clear indication that Lucasfilm are planning to do stuff with the Old Republic era of Star Wars. If you're not aware, at Star Wars Celebration, when they were talking about the future slate of movies, they also spoke about every era they're planning to delve into in terms of their storytelling. And the Old Republic was on this list. However, there hasn't been anything apart from the Knights of the Old Republic remake in regards to the Old Republic era that's been officially announced. And despite my personal distaste at the idea of Keanu being cast as Revan, even I have to admit there wouldn't be any better tease for the Star Wars fandom than to have Keanu appear as Revan in a story about the Sith, perhaps in a holocron message during his time as a Sith the same way Bane sees it in the books, perhaps it's some kind of historical flashback that then sets up a story, but I really do think it would send shockwaves across the entire fandom. But although I know this will make a lot of people excited, for me, if you've been a fan of this channel for any kind of period of time, or maybe you've been in the live streams, I've spoken quite openly about why I think Keanu Reeves is actually a really bad casting for the character. And that's not saying that Keanu Reeves isn't a wonderful man and a wonderful actor, and I will concede that he does kind of look like Revan, I guess, but he is both too old and he just doesn't exuberate a presence in the way that Revan is described. It's very easy to get lost in the idea that Keanu would look great as a character, but Revan really has nothing to do with his looks. Most of his time he has a mask on, and so it's all about presence and performance, especially based on the things we know about him from the games. And I genuinely adore Keanu Reeves. I have watched so many of his movies, and the one common thing about him as an actor is that he plays very similar kinds of characters in everything he does. In almost every role I've ever seen him play, he is very soft-spoken. He is very passive. He doesn't really command the screen with any kind of physical presence, especially when it comes to dialogue. Yes, he is great in regards to action, and he is exceptional with complex choreography and fighting scenes. But a notable example about his lack of screen presence would probably be The Matrix. Lawrence Fishburne's Morpheus is a commanding presence. He doesn't need to be fighting to exude being a powerful figure. And when it comes to the more nuanced scenes outside of the fighting sequences, Lawrence is always kind of overpowering Keanu. In fact, I would even say that Carrie-Anne Moss's Trinity even overpowers Keanu's Neo in most of the scenes they're in. And I would say that about even the later movies where Keanu is supposed to be, the chosen one. Another notable and more recent example is Johnny Silverhand, which is probably one of his most dialogue-heavy and more nuanced characters that he's ever played. And while excellent in what he does with it, I think it showcases his limitations in being a charismatic presence in the way that Revan is described. He doesn't command you in the game through charisma or power. His performance is captivating because of the mystery, because of how calm and alluring he is. But Revan is a charismatic leader of men. Revan's words move armies. Revan makes people betray those that they love for him. Revan is described as the epitome of charismatic, and to me, that's just not Keanu Reeves. And as much as it is sad to say, you have to consider the age factor. Keanu is nearly 60 years old. Revan is in his mid-30s. It just doesn't work. And I have said time and time again, there is one actor out there that looks more like Revan than Keanu Reeves, has more of a commanding screen presence than Keanu Reeves, who I think would literally be the best possible casting for a Revan. And that is an actor called Ben Barnes. I think he's most well known for his role in Shadow and Bone, where he plays a very commanding figure. He looks the part, he sounds the part, and he has a commanding on-screen presence. He has the charisma and the energy that I just think fits the character of Revan way more than Keanu does. But either way, I wouldn't necessarily be sad if Keanu was Revan. Like I said, I love the man, and I'd be hopeful that Keanu could bring something to the character that maybe we've not seen before. Perhaps a different storyteller would create a version of Revan that is more intriguing through his mystery and his calmness, in the same way that Keanu often acts with most of his performances. And while I personally wouldn't like a movie or a show to adapt the character of Revan to the limitations of the actor, we'll just have to wait and see. But even then, at the end of the day, this is just a rumour. It's quite possible he may just play some random Jedi or Sith, and then all of this speculation is a total waste of time. But I definitely do think it's not crazy to think that, the general noise surrounding his fan casting as Revan, the tease of Old Republic content coming in the future at Star Wars Celebration, and then this claim that it's just a cameo role for one of the most prestigious names in Hollywood, it definitely does make me raise my eyebrows and think, what are they cooking here? Anyway, I would love to know what you think. Is Keanu Reeves the man that you want to see play Revan, or is there somebody else you have in mind? Let me know down in the comment section below. I definitely do think you should check out Ben Barnes though if you've not seen any of his work, because I think you'll be surprised. To me, he is literally Revan. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button because it helps me out a great deal, and if you haven't, perhaps consider subscribing to join the biggest growing Knights of the Old Republic community on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.